Chapter 13, Loss and Lust. We looked like a happy family. We had a nice home and lived in a nice neighborhood. Our children were homeschooled and Lonnie had a good job. I had decided I wanted a skill, so I chose to take classes and become an emergency medical technician. There were many EMT jobs available where we moved, and it piqued my interest. It had been years since I had been in a classroom, but it was small and I enjoyed it. I'd even made a friend, Melissa. She was the talker in the class. She asked lots of questions, but she was always happy. She did not care that other people groaned when she raised her hand, and I liked that. She had just graduated from her homeschool program and was looking to get into the medical field. She was smart, cute, and sweet. My nephew was staying with us through the winter, and I wanted them to meet. Melissa came from a Christian family. Her mother had homeschooled her and all her siblings. There were lots of them. She told me her family had sold saddlebags for Harley Davidson for extra money. I thought this was ingenious. They had many streams of income for the family. This was the first time I had talked to anyone whose family did things like that. My family just had jobs they would devote their lives to, and that was not what I wanted. I was intrigued by her. How did her mother raise such a good girl? What was the difference between my home life and hers? For the next few weeks, she and I would study together and have fun. She was such a great influence on my kids, as they were homeschooled at the time. I could not wait for her and my nephew Chris to meet. Chris came down and was staying with us through the winter. His job was seasonal as he worked up north and the ground was frozen for the winter. We had a big house with plenty of room, so Chris settled in and we got ready for the holidays that were approaching. Chris met Melissa briefly one day and they both seemed to hit it off. I was excited to see if this would blossom because she was such a good person and so was he. This was not the first time Chris had lived with us. He was like my son. I knew he had some bad habits, but he was not running with those people anymore. He had lived here previously with his mom and brothers a few years prior and still had those contacts. My sister Linda had come down to help Chris get settled and to do sales in their area for her and her husband's business. My sister Linda and her husband had a credit card processing business. Many times over the years, they had tried to get me to sell. However, I'm not good at selling things, especially if I have zero interest. Credit card processing was boring. She had come to visit the holiday season to help her son Chris get settled in for the winter. She had convinced me to go out that night to different bars around the area so she could get their business. Bars were an easy sell for her, and they had great sales for residuals that were paid to Linda and her husband's business. I was not thrilled at the bar scene or selling, but hey, I was ready to have a night out. It was close to 3 weeks before Christmas, and the town was bustling. It was also cold as the winter was upon us. Chris and his brother, Linda's oldest son, had decided to go out and visit with old friends that evening. It had been a couple of years since they had seen each other, so they had planned a guys' night out. Linda and I left out of the house and were gone for the night early to catch the bars before they got busy. Chris and his brother left later. Chris had called and gotten only my voicemail that night, as the cell signal was not the best. He left a message that he loved us and that he would see us the next day. He and the guys were going to their friend's home for the night. The next day, Linda and I decided we needed to grab a few more holiday decorations for the house as we were preparing for our annual family Christmas. She and I got up and headed to the local Walmart. It was at this time in my life that I was in class to become an EMT. I was to graduate from the program by Christmas that year. I was excited. I had been preparing for my final exam and the state board exams. I remember standing in Walmart that morning when I heard over the loudspeaker, "Anyone with emergency medical training, please come to..." I had just froze. It did not register correctly in my mind, and I asked my sister, "Did you hear that?" I was explaining what I heard because she was looking at me confused when the cell phone rang. She looked at the number and recognized it was a family member. She answered it and the call dropped. This happened a couple more times when we realized we needed to leave the store for a signal. The caller sounded upset, and my sister picked up on it and ran to the exit. Once outside the store, the call came through loud and clear. It seemed as soon as I heard the loud announcement over the intercom at Walmart that time started moving in slow motion. It's strange to feel every emotion, to feel all the pain and be vulnerable. It was the first time our family as a whole had experienced trauma of this magnitude. To lose a child, a nephew, a grandson, brother, and cousin hit us in a way that, looking back, affected our core beliefs. I feel like the reason time is so long on earth compared to heaven is because of the misery we endure. When we enjoy life, it flies by, but adds some turmoil, and we feel stuck. We were told that Chris was passing away when the ambulance arrived on the scene to an unresponsive 19-year-old. CPR, we were told, had been started by his brother who found him that morning. By the time the ambulance arrived at the hospital, Chris had already passed away. His body had completely shut down from overdosing. This was a tailspin on my life and everyone around me. We had no foundation on how to deal with this pain, and then Lonnie's mother and sister were killed in an automobile accident less than 3 months after losing Chris. Lonnie's mother and sister had been traveling along with his sister's toddler. They were in a small pickup truck on a 2-lane highway. There was construction on the road and an oncoming vehicle had gone off on the shoulder, which was a drop-off. When he overcorrected to get back on the roadway, he crossed over the line and hit the small pickup head-on. His mother and sister, who were my age with 4 children, were both killed on impact. Lonnie's niece was not buckled in and slid into the floorboard, which saved her. More lives were shattered. My family to the left and right were coming apart. It was the first time I used food for medication. I had nowhere else to turn, as I still was not a person to take antidepressants. My weight ballooned up. It started after Chris's death, and by the time Christmas came, I was topping 200 pounds. After seeing a picture of myself, I decided I need to change my habits. It was at that time that I changed from regular soda to diet soda. After switching and adding exercise to my routine, I lost around 40 pounds. Lonnie and I had started working together after Chris's death. He had been on the road as a driver and needed to be home with his family. He came home and we soon began working out together. We were running, watching what we ate. We bought a home gym for the garage. Soon we both were looking good. We began hanging out with our coworkers at the clubs. I'd gotten back down to my high school weight and soon the attention I craved reared its ugly head again. During our marriage, I took Lonnie's emotional abuse and neglect as a reason to have affairs. I know it was not right, but who taught me? Right? No one. My brother and all 3 of my sisters have messed around on their spouses. These are things we do not see in families as we start dating and marrying. It is not just me that learned bad morals and values. I am just confessing I was guilty. I was doing well after our major move. However, when we're accused day and night, tempted if you will, and it is up to us whether we let the blame stick, and when you entertain the demons, hey, they get bold. We had been partying with our coworkers for a few months. As a married couple, we had no business out looking for trouble because, like in my past, trouble finds me. In our group, we had another married couple and a single guy. It got to the point where even if Lonnie worked, I was going out to meet up with the gang. It soon happened, that old familiar feeling of liking a boy. It happened to be the single guy in the group, Max, who had caught my attention, and I had caught his. Soon we found ourselves syncing our schedules at work as we were all drivers. We were talking and laughing and having way too much fun for a married woman and a single guy. Lonnie was a narcissist. I did not know what that was, but I knew he was selfish. He was emotionally cold. His parents were divorced, and his mother had been married many times. Over the 13 years Lonnie and I were married, I met a few of the men in her life. One slashed her face, and the other had severe PTSD, and she was afraid of him shooting her when he would flash back. She has also sought out medications for depression and so many other issues. His dad remarried and had a daughter, who to this day is one of my best friends. Blood is not thicker than water. Living water is thickened forever. I used to think that Lonnie and I loved each other, but we did not know love. So when Max came along and flattered me the way Lonnie did in the beginning, I confused it with love. Soon I was having an affair and divorcing Lonnie. I gave the reasons. It was finally time. I was not in love with him like I used to be. I wanted to find someone I loved. Well, guess what? Max was not that person. As soon as I got divorced from Lonnie, I was married to Max. Why not? This one was true love. I was just confused with my first marriage, and I was going to make this one work, and everyone in my family believed it. They believed that I was truly happy. That marriage lasted a total of 1 year. Don't get me wrong, our relationship was on and off mainly for 4 years. In fact, because of the soul tie that we created, he became attached to me. A couple of men from my past had become stalkerish until I realized that I was attached to them by soul ties. Ladies, these men can become unstable. Do not have sex unless it is with your husband only. Teach your children to wait until marriage. I've had mothers laugh at me when they hear me say wait until marriage. The progressive devil move will make us think that it's old fashioned. Courting should be brought back. It was not until 7 years later that I would settle down and learn what God had in store for me in marriage. However, it was not overnight that we both submitted to Christ. It was a lot of work to get here, but mainly because I had no earthly guidance. Once I got to the right page, the transformation started and has been happening ever since.